Hello, everybody. Hello to my blog listeners. We are following up on our blog from this past month that was about change management. And we're going to be doing a series of interviews in order to talk a little bit more about what it takes for staff to be able to change alongside of the organization. I wanted to just remind you that this blog is 100% about our roadmap to transformative services. So, Cora and our leadership team here is very aware that we're in a culture and a world that has changed a lot, beginning before COVID, straight through COVID, and certainly now. And what I'm witnessing as a leader is a hunger and a thirst for people to go back to what was, but we can't go back to what was because it's totally different. And quite frankly, here in Philadelphia, with the folks that we serve and the children that we serve here in Philadelphia, it is not business as usual for them. So it shouldn't be business as usual for us. So this month in my blog, I talked a little bit about change management, and it wasn't based on research and it wasn't based on studies. It was based on what I'm seeing and what I'm witnessing. And in that, I talked about 5 different things that we needed to consider as leaders as we think about change management and having our organization and our staff change with us as we change. We talked about the importance of relationships, trust, communication, ownership, and the combination of authority and humility. So for this very first follow-up, I am interviewing one of my staff who is one of our student assessment program case managers. Patricia Taylor has been with us for several years, and I'm going to first let her introduce herself to you, how long she's been with the organization, roughly, and a little bit more about her role.
Hi, I am, yes, a SAP Case Manager. I've been with CORA, I think August makes 7 years, so for some time. I currently assist the SAP counselors with monitoring referrals, helping link clients to counseling services when needed, and kind of the nitty gritty pieces of just making sure that the families have what they need in terms of like medical assistance, housing, shelter, community resources, and the like. So that's what I do.
Fantastic. And the work that she does is at the core of the mission of CORA for sure. So with that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about change management. And I'm going to ask you, Patricia, for your input and your insight around how you feel and what you feel you need in order to transition with an organization that is going through change. And obviously you experienced it quite a bit with us through COVID. And in a lot of ways, we're still changing now because so much has changed, like I said earlier, in our world. So my first question for you is a 2-part question. What do you personally need in order to shift gears or in order to transition in your role as the organization is changing? And then what is most essential for you from leadership in order to trust the organization and leadership as it's changing?
Okay. Well, I think when you are talking about transitioning within an organization, you understand that change affects a variety of different things, right? So, with that being said, for me, I believe full transparency is needed. You need to understand like what's happening, maybe not so much of why it's happening, but what's happening. What's to be expected from the top to the bottom, and what is needed, what is needed of me as I need to shift those gears. With that being said, I think it's important to understand who the change is going to affect as a whole, how change is going to affect me, day to day, where if there's going to be assistance with me in that change. Am I just going to be thrown to the wolves, or am I going to have some assistance in this process of this change that is happening? Along with that, how long would this change take? Is it going to take a long time? Is it if a supervisor is coming into a role, is it going to be one of those things that's just a few months, or is it going to be a long lived change? And then what would that look like as an employee?
Yeah, you brought up a couple things that I really appreciate that I don't always think about, in my position. But one, when a new supervisor comes into a role, you brought it up, and I'm not going to ask you to talk more about it, but that effect on the subordinates or their employees, I think, is pretty significant because that's a change that's happening at your level and not organization wide, and yet it impacts you and wondering what that new person's going to be requiring of you, and what they're going to think about you, and it's almost like you're starting over and having to prove yourself kind of in a new way, which is really an interesting change that an employee goes through that we don't always think about. And I love the other thing that you talked about that I think is also really important, is this idea of when you talk about transparency, you're also asking the question, how is this change going to impact me? And I think lots of times leaders forget that, like, all of our employees are also human as individuals. Like, we think as a whole and not only also at the individual level. So I love that you bring up how important it is for the employees to understand the impact that that change is going to have, not just on their work, but on them as kind of human beings. I really appreciate that.
Sure. What's essential for me to trust leadership? The first thing is competency, right? I don't want to follow a leader that does not know what they're doing. Who wants to do that, right? So with that being said, I want to be able to, I think in leadership, the key word is leader. So you're following a leader, understanding that they know what they're doing and that they're going to guide you in the right direction of whatever it is that you have to do. The other thing is compassion for me. With the type of work that I do in social services, working with people on a regular basis, understanding mental health, understanding how that affects me and how that affects the world in which I work, you can't work for a person or under a person who has no compassion, who does not understand that things are going to come up, things are going to happen. It might affect you personally, and you might need a day, you might need a minute, you might need time to adjust to whatever you just was exposed to through a client, right? So those are very important essential keys to trusting my leadership. In addition to that, a little bit of creativity is important for me when it comes to leadership teams as well, because when you think about a leader, you think of someone that's going to come in and be be innovative, be innovative to a project, be innovative to programs. When you think about art, food, music, all of these things, innovation was key in all of those things, right? So you want someone that's going to be able to come in and kind of like blow your mind in a way. You want someone that's going to be able to think outside of the box to create something that's going to be exemplary in all walks of whatever it is that they're focusing on, so that you can be inspired, encouraged, and motivated to not only do your job to the best of your abilities, but maybe be the light or an example for someone else in the future, right? Like you want an innovative person. And I feel like creativity is needed in that leadership. You want someone to say, this is not working. That's what I need. I would need competency, compassion, and creativity.
That's right. Yeah. Competency. I mean, how do you know? How do you know if a leader's competent? Because I think you're right. I think people are looking for competency, and they're definitely looking for compassion. It's not something that people talk about all the time. CORA talks about compassion all the time because it's a driver of who we are. Yeah. But how does somebody communicate that to you? Is it getting to know you as a person? Is it the way they express themselves? Is it, proving innovation and proving over time? Does it develop over time, would you say?
It can definitely develop over time, but I think in the role itself, right? Like if you are a director of a particular program, right? You should know what it is that you're supposed to do in that program. Yep. You should know who's under you and what their roles are in that program, not just guessing or not just assuming that, these parts are supposed to work together just because they're there. Know what's going on. Know also maybe, there's also that training piece, right? But I just think like coming into a leadership position for whatever your role is, you should have some type of background in what it is that you're doing. You're not just coming in winging it and expecting everybody to follow the leader just because you have this title. Right. I don't care that you have this title if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think more and more people say that now. I think there was a generation back before me that really thought, a title matters, authority matters. Now I absolutely think you're right that employees are saying it's not just the title. Like, show me that you can do the job and you can do it well. Show me that you believe that I can do it well and that you're going to give me something that I don't already know in my role and you can offer. Exactly. And doing it in a way that expresses compassion and a lot for me as a person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that matters. So we're bringing this back to change a little bit. I think that matters every day because change is always happening at all levels of the organization every day. They just are, whether a program shifts or you have new leadership at the school that you're in, or you have a new direct supervisor here. You're being impacted by that every day. So you need to see that every day, and then you need to see that during larger change also. So last question for you. Is there a time, well, why don't we say this? Is there a time that you feel CORA did communicate well? Are there times where you felt CORA did not communicate well while we were going through a change? What are your thoughts?
this one is a bit of a like, so understanding that I'm in a specific like department. For me, I'm going back to COVID now, right? There was a time where I felt like you did an excellent job of communicating and being very transparent with, what's going on in the agency, the unknown. There was a lot of unknown at the time of like what's going on with the agency because there was a lot of unknown in the world. And I think that you did an excellent job at making sure that we had something, some type of information. I think you even, you came on and you did vlogs, like I believe weekly, to kind of continue to like let us know, stay encouraged, like, and the key question that I think many of us had, are we losing our jobs, right? And I think you came in every week saying, everyone is okay, please don't worry, and I think that that was very effective communication in a time where the world was just, again, unknown, scary, sad, so I think that was very effective communication. And I think that also active listening is what you did a lot of too. I think you listened to a lot of our concerns, and by listening to our concerns, that omits assuming. You try, like don't
Guessing.
assume that, guessing that you know how people were feeling, but just listening and then trying to put things forward to make things better for the staff that work here. So I think that that was, great. In terms of what can be done better, I think I would need a little bit more like time to really get into that one, only because I am in a specific department and I can only kind of like speak to that, but not from an executive level. I wouldn't know too much of what can be done better.
So, a lot of what you talked about today, which again I think is so important for leaders to understand, is that the role that middle management and direct supervisors have is so important to the work of the organization. And I've said that over and over again, right? I can do a lot and I can be trustworthy, but if people don't like the middle managers, and the middle managers do so much to ensure that the culture and the mission of the organization pushes down really well, and communication pushes down really well, but also lifts your concerns and direct service up so that the right decisions are being made. It's like such a crucial role for any organization. And I think you highlighted that without even me knowing what you were going to talk about today. You highlighted the importance of that role on a day-to-day basis when change continues to occur, whether it's the small shifts or the larger shifts. You also kind of talked a little bit about my role in COVID when the whole world was shaken up. And you didn't say this, but maybe I felt this a little bit, but you did highlight the role that I played in communicating during that time versus what maybe middle management was doing, which is very different than day to day, which relies more on middle management than maybe the senior leadership. And I don't know if you think that's true or not true, or
No, I definitely think middle management plays a significant role, but I think that when the world was in the place that it was in, I think we needed to hear from you, from the upper management, the one, that sits on all boards, the one that has the final say or has, a lot of say. So it's not to eliminate the fact that middle management does a lot. Like, I love who I work for under and all that stuff. But I think at that time, we definitely wanted to hear from them, but we also knew that they answered to you. So with that being said, we already know the hierarchy there. So we have to, I would say wanted to hear from you, and I appreciated that you did that, and I'm sure you took the feedback in from middle management. That goes without saying, so
absolutely. So a lot of food for thought there. Thank you so much. You brought up so much stuff that I feel like I could write a whole new blog on
sociologist.
That's right. The sociologist came out in you. Very good. Thank you so much for being on this. You already know how much I appreciate you and this organization. I got to know you a little bit before COVID, which was awesome when we were doing listening tours across the organization. So thank you for the work you do, and thank you for being bold enough to do this.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
That's great. And with all that being said, I guess the only thing that I would add to this conversation is, and then as a walk away for me, because I learn every day, is just, again, my role, right? I'm always thinking about my role and how I can do it better. In crisis, my role is to really step up, which we all know as leaders. But on a day-to-day basis, so much of our role is to provide what our middle management needs to be really effective communicators to the staff below them, because they play such a crucial role. So very well said. Very well said. Thanks so much.